Hey all! Amanda here for your full recap of American Ninja Warrior Season 15, Episode 10, Round 3 and 4 of the semifinals. Just to keep things interesting, this episode was 2 hours and showcased the final 2 rounds of the semifinal competition. And as predicted, the course for the final 2 rounds was slightly changed up and now consisted of the following 6 obstacles. We had Home Run, now followed by the Flying Shelf Grab, then return to Beehive, which was now followed by Sideways. Then we had Slingshot, and the 18-foot rope climb that leads over a large step to the buzzer. The action was non-stop all night, with a ton of surprises, and we saw the following results. We started the night with 2 of our youngest females hitting the course. Anna MacArthur ran against Madeline Medreyes, and both women were exceptional. Anna took the lead from the start and held it till Sideways, where she took her first break. Madeline was able to catch up by Slingshot, where Anna fell from the second cradle. Madeline went on to hit a buzzer with a time of 3:02.97 and is heading to Vegas. Next up, we saw Isaiah Wakeham take on newcomer Grant Kinningham. This race was neck and neck the entire run until both men made it to Slingshot, where Grant took the slightest of leads. But that was enough, as Grant reached the buzzer first with a time of 2:00.59. Isaiah was also able to hit a buzzer moments later with a time of 2:05.24. And speaking of Grants, our first digested run of the night saw the Island Ninja Grant McCartney run against rookie Sebastian Krismer. Surprisingly, Grant took an early lead and held it to Beehive, where he started to slow his pace and ended up falling as he reached the end of Sideways. Sebastian was able to make it halfway through Slingshot before gassing out, but will be advancing to Vegas. Next was McCartney's good friend, the Eskimo Ninja Nick Hansen, who ran against another newcomer, 15-year-old Joseph Rouse. Nick took an early lead to Sideways, where he took a moment to catch his breath. Joseph ended up taking the lead, as when Nick went to skip the last board on Sideways, he hit his elbow off the last board, which landed him in the splits on top of the rotating board. As Nick fell to the platform, Joseph landed unevenly on the second cradle of Slingshot and hit the water. Nick, looking gassed, took another moment before starting Slingshot, but he too ended up falling halfway across, sending Joseph to the finals. Our next run featured 2 longtime vets to ninja competition. Neither Karsten Williams nor Abel Gonzalez were running for speed, but Karsten held the lead the entire course. Abel waited to start each obstacle to see if Karsten fell, meaning Abel would only have to complete that obstacle rather than beat Karsten in speed. Karsten was able to hit a buzzer with a time of 2:14.56, so now the pressure was on Abel to hit a buzzer and hope to advance as a non-finisher, but he ended up having a crazy lâché crossing Slingshot and flailed to the water below. Our next digested run was the flyboy Isaiah Thomas racing against Forrest Strict. Isaiah took the lead crossing the Flying Shelf Grab and then remained an obstacle and a half ahead the rest of the course. Isaiah ended up hitting a buzzer with a time of 1:08.33. Forrest tried to complete the course, but ended up slipping from the bar after landing a second cradle on Slingshot. Our next run was a complete stunner when we saw Isabella Wakeham run against Sandy Zinnerman. As Isabella was transferring from the second to the last flying shelf, she ended up hitting her head, causing her to fall to the water below. This meant Sandy automatically advanced to Vegas for the first time in her career. She made it as far as Slingshot before landing unevenly on the third cradle, and when she tried to correct her mistake, the bar slipped, causing her to fall. Kyle Soderman and Silas Snyder were next to have their runs digested, where Kyle took an early lead through Home Run, but Silas was able to catch up by the Flying Shelf Grab. The rest of the race remained neck and neck till the end of Slingshot, where Silas just fell from the second last cradle and hit the water. Kyle went on to hit a buzzer with a time of 1:48.63. Next to have their runs digested were Benjamin Drake and Elijah Levay. They were close through Home Run, but then Elijah's hand slipped from the second shelf on the Flying Shelf Grab, ending his season. Benjamin was able to make it as far as Sideways, but could not stick the middle transfer and fell to the water below. Next up was TikTok star Simba Jones taking on Flip's apprentice Cal Flores, and man, has he grown since his debut. Although I was enjoying Simba's season, he unfortunately fell from the last shelf on the flying shelf grab, ending his season. Cal, who was running for time, skipped the first board on Sideways, but then missed the first board transferring to the middle section, sending him to the water, but also to Vegas. Up next was a face-off between two ladies that both trained with Sandy Zimmerman when Clarissa Morris took on Kaylin Jewell. Clarissa held a slight lead throughout the course, and when Kaylin fell from the second board of Sideways, Clarissa advanced as she completed the obstacle. She tried for a buzzer, but missed the fourth cradle on Slingshot. In a huge upset and digested run, we saw returning OG ninja Ian Dory take on newcomer Jonathan Bang. Stunningly, Ian missed the second last board on Sideways, ending his season. Jonathan went on to hit his first buzzer with a time of 2:21.63. And in our next digested run, we saw youngsters Vance Walker take on Eric Zanarano. Not surprisingly, Vance flew through the course and stayed an obstacle and a half ahead of Eric the entire run. Vance hit a buzzer with the fastest time of round 3 at 52.99 seconds. Eric was able to make it to the last cradle of Slingshot before falling to the water below. Next up, we had one of my favorite female ninjas when Barclay Stockett took the course against 20-year-old Rachel Brown. Rachel took an early lead through home run, but Barclay was able to overtake her on flying shelf grab and kept that lead the rest of the course. Rachel ended up missing the third board on Sideways and hit the water, sending Barclay to Vegas for her 5th time. Barclay tried for a buzzer, but landed unevenly on the fourth cradle of Slingshot, ending her run. Our last digested run for round 3 featured another fan favorite, Jody Avella, taking on Dion Butler. Jody took an early lead, but it didn't matter, as Dion missed the last honeycomb on Beehive and hit the water. Jody made it as far as Slingshot before missing the third cradle. And our final run for the first half of the night's action was a heartbreaker of a setup. My mom's favorite ninja, and one most likely to win the $1 million, Daniel Gill, took on an instant fan favorite, Gary Whelan, who runs with a prosthetic leg. This was one of the hardest matchups for me to watch, as I didn't want either man to miss out on Vegas. Daniel was running for time, having a scary stumble dismounting home run, but was able to recover and make it to Beehive before Gary finished crossing home run himself. But just as things were looking bleak for Gary, unbelievably, Daniel fell crossing Sideways and hit the water. At this point, I was torn. My mom was beside herself, thinking Daniel may miss out on Vegas, but man did I want to see Gary advance. And this was his chance. Gary was just about to complete Beehive, but just fell from the last board, just missing out on beating Daniel Gill and on heading to Vegas. This was an edge-of-your-seat run, and just another example of how anything can and will happen on this show. Our wildcard winners for round 3 were Isaiah Wakeham, who was able to hit a buzzer his run with a time of 2:05.24, and Eric Zamorano, who made it to Slingshot in a time of 58:09. As for our Safety Pass matchup, the Safety Pass course for rounds 3 and 4 remained the same as the main course, consisting of the same 6 obstacles. We had Texan Vance Walker take on Flyboy Isaiah Thomas, and again, if you blinked, you would have missed the entire run. It was head-to-head, with both men moving at breakneck speeds as they both reached Slingshot, the 5th of 6 obstacles, in under 30 seconds. Isaiah had skipped the first board on Sideways when Vance took an extra swing on Beehive, but then as they matched moves again through Slingshot, Vance did not hesitate between laches from the last cradle to the resting bar to the rope climb, and ended up hitting a buzzer 0.2 of a second ahead of Isaiah, earning the Safety Pass for Stage 1 of the Vegas Finals. Another unbelievable match, and we're only at the halfway point. The course for round 4 remained the same as round 3 and featured the final qualifying athletes competing for their ticket to Vegas, and the results we saw were as follows. We started the second half with Electric Enzo Wilson facing off against the Deaf Ninja Kyle Schultz. Kyle took an early lead from Sideways, and it was head-to-head through Beehive. Unfortunately, Kyle fell halfway through Sideways, and Enzo went on to hit a buzzer with a time of 1:28.08. Next up, we had my favorite ninja, Flip Rodriguez, running against Johnny Brown. Naturally, the OG of speed held the lead the entire course, even when he hit his head on Sideways, where he jumped the last board. Johnny ended up falling from the second cradle of Slingshot, as Flip went on to hit his 21st career buzzer as he heads back to Vegas. His time was 2:04.51. And if this run was not already digested, you would think that it was anyway, when Alex Romer took on Matt Glantz. Alex tripped up the landing on home run first, so when both men missed the second shelf on the flying shelf grab, Alex advanced. This was definitely one of the shortest runs of the season, but yet another example of how anything can and will happen in this show. Our next digested run was against youngster Ethan Barnicki and returning vet DC Banks. Ethan kept the lead the entire run, and even though when DC fell crossing Sideways meant Ethan automatically advanced, Ethan still wanted another buzzer. He was able to hit his 5th buzzer in his short career with a time of 1:08.26. And in another incredible run, rookie Naxa Garamore took on the one-eyed ninja Isaiah Lee. Naxa, who is quickly becoming one of my favorites, flew through the course and stayed an obstacle and a half ahead the entire run. Naxa hit a buzzer with a time of 56.14 seconds, then turned to cheer on fellow competitor Isaiah, who fell crossing Slingshot. Another great show of sportsmanship amongst the community. Then, it was Naxa's brother Roberto's turn, where he ran against the boss ninja Elijah Browning. This was back and forth the whole race, with each ninja pushing the other to their limits. Unfortunately, Roberto landed badly on the 5th cradle of Slingshot and hit the water. Elijah went on to hit a buzzer with a time of 53.89 seconds. Our next digested run had Janique Levette face off against newcomer Dara DePaulo. And in an unfortunate misstep, Dara missed the third base crossing home run, ending her chances at advancing. Though that meant Janique automatically advanced, she went on to have a hard landing from Sideways and made it all the way to Slingshot before falling. This makes her the 4th mom heading to Vegas this season. Then, rocker RJ Roman took on rookie Daniel Osmer in our next digested run. RJ stayed an obstacle ahead the entire race until Daniel missed the last honeycomb on Beehive, sending him spinning to the water below. However, this didn't slow RJ down, as he went on to hit a buzzer in a time of 48.76 seconds, the fastest time of this round. Up next was OG Ninja Brett Sims taking on Brandon Thomas. Brett had a slight lead till Beehive, where Brandon overtook him. It was close through Slingshot until Brandon started linking laches and pulled ahead to the buzzer with a time of 1:33.01. Brett was able to hit a buzzer shortly after, taking a time of 1:42.62. Then, we saw a flurry of Bergstrom's race. Newly married David Bergstrom Wright had his run digested when he took on Josh Himanaka. David kept his lead until Josh fell crossing Sideways. David tried for a buzzer, but fell crossing Slingshot. He is, however, advancing to Vegas. Then, newly married Caleb Bergstrom had his run digested when he took on newcomer Jason Grossman. Caleb held a considerable lead the whole course, and Jason was able to make it as far as Slingshot, but missed a cradle and fell to the water below. Caleb went on to hit a buzzer with a time of 57.56 seconds. Next up, we saw sister-in-laws face off when Ashley Bergstrom and Caitlin Bergstrom Wright hit the course. Caitlin took an early lead through home run, but then Ashley overtook her till Sideways. Ashley then waited for Caitlin to complete Sideways, where she jumped the last board and landed on the rotating wall. They hugged each other, and Ashley started a Slingshot. She fell halfway through, as did Caitlyn, sending Ashley to Vegas and making Ashley and husband Caleb the first married couple to make it to the finals, another American Ninja Warrior first. Then, veteran ninja Ryan Stratus returned to have his run digested, where he faced off against Austin Hare. The men were closely matched, but Austin was able to dismount Beehive first, so when both men fell, within moments of each other, crossing sideways, Austin automatically advanced. Then, failed video star Bob Reese took on Vinny Castronova, who took an early lead. Bob took his time through the course and made a one-handed recovery crossing sideways. Vinny went on to hit a buzzer in a time of 1:37.81, and though slower, Bob also managed to hit a buzzer with a time of 2:29.24. And in our last digested run of the semifinals, we had JAG officer Jerry Derillo take on Emma Pereira. Jerry took an early lead, but then got spun out on the first honeycomb of Beehive. Emma made it as far as Slingshot before missing the third cradle, sending her to the water. And our last semifinal race of the night was against rookie Jaleesa Himka, taking on her idol, Jessie Graff. The ladies mirrored moves through the start of the course, but then Jaleesa finished sideways first and moved on to Slingshot as Jessie took extra time making her way across. But just as Jessie went to transition from the middle of sideways to the third last board, her hand missed the far side of the board, sending her to the water below. Jaleesa came extremely close to hitting a buzzer, but just missed the landing bar at the end of Slingshot. She will be heading to Vegas, her rookie year. The two fastest non-finishers of the night to advance as wildcards for round 4 of the semifinals were Brett Sims, who was able to hit a buzzer in a time of 1:42.62, and Bob Reese, who was also able to hit a buzzer with a time of 2:29.24. As for the safety pass run, we saw RJ Roman face off against Elijah Browning, and this was definitely one of the fastest races of the season so far. RJ started in the lead, and the gap between the men kept growing from that point on. RJ looked to be floating across the course, linking every move he could, and soared to the buzzer in a blistering 38.4 seconds. Elijah hit his buzzer moments later and hugged RJ to congratulate him for winning the final safety pass. It was a very exciting night to be sure, but we lost a ton of great ninjas in the process. And unfortunately, anyone who advances from Stage 1 will have to face this type of showdown again, as Stage 2 of the Vegas Finals will once again be all head-to-head runs. But first, they have to get through Stage 1. The action starts August 21st as we head to the Vegas Finals, and as hinted by NBC themselves, to Mount Midoriyama to crown our 3rd ever American Ninja Warrior. Check out Season 15 every Monday night this summer, only on NBC, then remember to come back here for all your recaps and predictions, and possible sneak peeks, with room left over for all of your comments and opinions on the show down below. So until next time, enjoy the show!